The land of Israel was living in fear. For 7 long years, the Midianites swept through the land like locusts. Every harvest season, they came with their camels and armies, stealing crops, livestock, and hope itself. The Israelites hid in caves and mountain strongholds, crying out to God under the weight of oppression. God heard them, but the deliverer he chose was not a warrior standing tall on a battlefield. Gideon was a man hiding and considered himself the least in his family. Gideon was threshing wheat, careful and afraid the Midianites would see him and take what he had. It was there, in that place of fear and survival, that the angel of the Lord appeared and spoke words Gideon could hardly believe.
"The Lord is with you, mighty warrior."
Mighty warrior? Gideon looked around as if someone else was meant to hear that. He was not brave. He was not powerful. His family was the weakest in the tribe of Manasseh, and he considered himself the least in his household.
"How can I save Israel?"
He asked.
"My clan is the weakest, and I am the least."
But God did not argue with Gideon's weakness. He simply replied, "I will be with you." That was the key. Gideon still doubted. He asked for a sign, and God provided one. Fire rose from a rock and consumed Gideon's offering, confirming that God was truly speaking. Terrified, Gideon feared he would die for seeing the angel of the Lord. But God spoke peace over him. "Peace, do not be afraid. You are not going to die." And Gideon built an altar there and called it, "The Lord is Peace." Before Gideon could fight Midian, God gave him a harder assignment, one closer to home. That very night, God told Gideon to tear down his father's altar to Baal and cut down the Asherah pole beside it. Gideon obeyed, but he did it at night, still afraid. Even in fear, obedience matters. As the Midianite army gathered for war, Gideon's fear returned, so he asked God for another sign, placing a fleece on the ground. The first night, he asked that the fleece be wet with dew while the ground remained dry. God did it. Still unsure, Gideon asked again, this time that the fleece be dry and the ground wet. Once again, God answered. Gideon gathered an army of 32,000 men to fight Midian, but God said something shocking. "You have too many men." God knew that if Israel won with such numbers, they would claim the victory for themselves. So God reduced the army, testing them until only 300 men remained. Still afraid, Gideon was given one last encouragement. God told him to sneak into the enemy camp. There, Gideon overheard a Midianite describing a dream of a loaf of barley bread crashing into their camp and collapsing a tent.
"I had a troubling dream. A loaf of barley bread tumbled into the camp, struck a tent, and overturned it completely."
Another soldier interpreted the dream. This can only be the sword of Gideon. God has given Midian into his hands. Hearing this, Gideon worshipped. Fear gave way to faith. Gideon armed his 300 men, not with swords, but with trumpets, jars, and torches. At night, they surrounded the camp. The Midianites panicked. In confusion, they turned on one another and fled. God had done exactly what he promised. Israel was delivered, not by strength, but by obedience and trust. After the victory, the people wanted Gideon to be their king, but Gideon refused, saying,
"I will not rule over you, nor shall my son rule over you. The Lord alone shall rule over you."
Gideon's story reminds us that God uses imperfect people, and that faith is not a moment, but a journey. God met Gideon in hiding, called him mighty, walked patiently through his doubts, and showed him that God's power is made perfect in weakness. And the same God who called Gideon still calls people today, right where they are, not when they feel strong, but when they choose to trust.